Welcome to the E-Show with Neil Ravin. Founded in 2013, the EHL has become the college placement leader on the East Coast. Sit back and learn more about the next step in your junior hockey career.
Welcome to the E-Show, presented by the Penalty Box Foundation. The Foundation's mission centers around their daily motto, we take care of our own, as they help out all of those within the hockey community who've experienced a catastrophic event. Learn more at penaltyboxfoundation.org. What's up? My name is Neil Ravin, and this is episode number 136 of the E-Show. On this week's episode, we preview the start of the 2022-23 season. When the puck drops later this afternoon in Connecticut, it will mark the beginning of the 10th year in league history for the EHL. To kick things off, the Ecru welcomes Jake Basile to the podcast for the very first time, and then takes you through the weekly rundown with a breakdown of both sets of preseason power rankings. Continuing on, we get to the Ecru Fantasy Challenge with a new format being implemented for this upcoming year. Then, to wrap things up, each member of the Ecru picks a matchup to watch over the course of the opening weekend. This week's episode is brought to you by Hockey Tech, the developers for the new EHL app, available now in both the Apple and Google stores. For more information, visit theehl.app. And with that, let's bring in the E-Crew now. Guys, Anthony and Jeff, we've been talking all summer. Let's welcome in Jake. The season is here, finally.
Yes. As much as we love those summer episodes, Ant-Man, I know you agree. I'm ready for the season to start. And Jake, welcome aboard, man. Good to have you.
Thank you. I can't express how great it is to be here.
And Jake, for those that don't know, you're going to see his face a lot on our social media channels throughout the season, covering all the events for Hockey Night in Boston. Of course, Anthony writing articles for Hockey Night in Boston. His season preview is now out. Our preseason rankings are out. And yes, we talked every week throughout the summer. Myself, Jeff, and Anthony went team by team. And I think you're right, Anthony. It felt like the offseason just took forever. It literally was almost a half a year in between puck drops, right?
Yep.
So
Too long.
Too long for sure. But the 10th season of the EHL is here. And with that, let's jump into the weekly rundown.
It's time for the E-Crew's Weekly Rundown.
The E-Show Weekly Rundown is brought to you by the Junior Hockey Podcast, your home for junior hockey news, knowledge, and nonsense. Check them out at tjhpodcast.com.
As I mentioned, it is time for the 10th season of the EHL. I always have to do this math, Jeff. My eighth, because I came in year 3, and my first year was the first year of the EHLP. So the 8th year of the EHLP. I think the teams were generous to us in that it's a little bit of a slower start, right? So this upcoming week, we have 14 games in the EHL. I got to count EHLP. 8 games in the EHLP, and then it's the showcase, right? So
and that's when all hell breaks loose.
4 days. What did we count the other day, Neil? 50 something?
50. So
50 right on the dot.
Right.
Yes. Yeah. So
Symmetry.
this week's episode. Well, who makes the schedule, Jeff? Right. But hold on. Let's not have
schedule. Everyone keeps. Let's not cut the schedule in the knees. I think you did a pretty good job this year.
Thank you.
And happy anniversary, EHL. We're gonna sing happy birthday to the EHL at some point.
We can at the showcase.
Happy birthday.
But we can't. We don't want to flash back to a year ago when Anthony nearly took my head off in the first episode about the schedule maker. But anyways, it's funny
that's why you did a better job. See, you don't make the same mistake twice, Neil.
But for us, as we welcome in Jake, we're previewing 22 games this week.
Yep.
And then next week we'll preview 50 games. so we kind of like dip our toe in and then
jump right in.
Then it's deep end. All right, you passed your test. Get in the deep end. Let's go.
And Jake, I think the toughest part for you is you're gonna meet next week 70
a lot of people
70 staff, coaches, photographers, engineers all at once. There will not be a quiz for names, though. We will not quiz you on that, all right?
I'll try to make sure I will be your bodyguard. I'll go around and introduce you to the big tough guys, and Chris Sorella and Rich DiCaprio, and some of the.
I I didn't know when I joined I'd be getting my own security detail, but that's a good.
Got you.
Jeff, it's going to be like the Goodfellas scene where they go through the Copacabana. You just gotta get them through the entire Worcester rink.
That's right. I'm just gonna sit there with my arms folded. You want to talk to Jake? Go talk to me. You gonna talk to him? Gonna go through me. Let's go.
You get to go through the press box, the penalty boxes, everything.
I'm taking care of our rookie of the year.
The only thing is not everyone in the EHL is named Peter or Paul, so there's going to be a bit more variation.
Yeah, we got some new faces this year. That's a good introduction too, right, Neil? As far as you got some guys that have shipped out, guys that are shipping in. Got some guys that moved on. You can go check it out at easternhockeyleague.org. Josh Holmstrom no longer with the Walpole Express, over to Air Force. Congrats to Josh.
Vinny Calgieri going to Princeton.
Vinny Calgieri to Princeton. Michael Grace to Elmira. We're gonna have a lot of new faces this year.
Some coaches getting promoted from the P to the EHL, like Seth Gustin for the Lumberjacks.
Yep, absolutely.
So if you go to our About Us page on the league website, I do point out how what's awesome is obviously you go to the website, the first thing you see is that 1523, our total number of commitments for all the teams combined in 9 seasons. But it's been amazing to see the coaches progress as well, because it feels like every off season, like the season ends and someone will say to me, well, who's not coming back? Well, at this point, everyone's coming back because the season just ended. And then all of a sudden 5 months go by and Jeff, you mentioned Josh Holmstrom, Vinny Calgieri, Michael Grace, and the promotions and seeing the coaches be able to use this league as a tool to move up as well. It's just awesome. And then we've seen broadcasters too. We've seen broadcasters, and it's a true league that can develop everyone that's involved in it. So it's amazing. Obviously, players first, right? But off of that, the coaches, the broadcasters, you name it. But let's jump into our preseason power rankings, because we're following kind of a new system this year. This is one of those many aspects of this league that I can never turn my brain off. I'm constantly thinking about something about the league. And while playing out one of my 50 rounds on the golf course this summer, I was like, how do I make the power rankings different? Right? Because it's been tough in the past, because especially the COVID year, it's a whole different episode, as I always like to say, trying to figure out how to balance.
That could be an E60 now.
Yeah. Who's played who and if this win is worth more than this win and whatnot. And the system that I've come up with, starts by ranking the teams based off where they finished this past year. Right. So with turnover, especially, at the players, if we're moving 150 plus players per year off to college, the rosters aren't going to look the same the following year. So it's tough to then say, yes, we're going to rank the New Jersey 87s as the number one ranked team because they won the championship, right? Adam Hooley says this team this year could be better than last year's team.
Really?
But we don't know that, right? Until they get on the ice, right? So we don't really know. If you're ranking the teams 1 through 19 based off where they finished last year, there's a chance that the team that we ranked 12th could win the whole thing, because you just don't know what the teams are going to be like until they actually hit the ice. But the fairest way to start is to do based off where they finished this past season.
Right. We mentioned, Neil, that this new system is kind of comparable to what college football does, right? With the BCS, kind of like points projections, somewhat similar, not exactly linear. So coaches don't start getting our faces ready for dartboards, and it's not the same way, but similar. And I think everybody, ourselves included, will enjoy this a lot more than the old system. Because there were some people that said they didn't care about them, but they did. And, it would give us headaches at times every week when we try to think of new teams to move in, teams to move out. And we would spend a lot of time each segment trying to decipher how we would get stuff in, and it result in a lot of Tylenol and ibuprofen on all of our ends. But yeah, I think this new system is going to be good. And I'm excited because, like you said, look at all these commitments, Neil, as far as the 87s you were just saying, if they can get better and they lose guys like Anastasio, Atkinson, Jeremy Connor, Owen Haynes, James Metler, Devlin O'Kane, Tobin Winslow,
Zidanowicz.
Yeah, all these guys. You lost all these guys, and you're going to be better next year. So I mean, that just shows you. But you did win an EHL and an EHLP championship. Now down in New Jersey, we talked about that at the Preseason Finals last year. That's a very easy recruiting tool. You can win the championship at both levels. You're going to get a lot more guys to walk through the doors of Jersey Shore Arena, just off of that alone.
And for those that do hear it, it's not bad, Jeff, but your chickens are speaking up on the podcast right now.
Yeah, they're annoying me.
Nash is not here for his occasional bark because he usually, if he barks at all, it's during the power rankings.
Yeah,
because he's recognizing that things are getting kind of heated at that moment. So, but
the ladies did like the power rankings. I don't know. Now they're trying to chime in, and my hens are trying to give their 2 cents. So,
to make the list 1 through 19 based off where teams finished this past season, just to read off what I came up with, it's 87's Express, because obviously the 87's won the championship game against the Express. Railers, Wolves, Avalanche, Little Flyers, Rangers, Chiefs, Ducks, Maryland, Lumberjacks, Wizards, Spartans, Seahawks, Rough Riders, Apical, Warriors, Rhode Island, Philly. Obviously, Rhode Island starting their brand new season, or their first game in franchise history this year at 18 for now. Tough to know where they would have finished last year because they didn't play. And then Philly Hockey Club coming over from the USPHL, we put them at 19. But to explain the system on how this is going to work is you're going to get points separate from the standings. This is simply power rankings points. Let's make that very clear. The standings are one thing. These are the power rankings, and you get points based off where teams are. So if you beat a team that's ranked 1 through 5 in that certain week, you get more points than if you beat a team that's ranked 16 through 19. Obviously, additional points for a shutout, and then not as many additional points if it's a shootout win, obviously, because shootouts are such a toss-up. But then in the reverse
skills competition, if you will.
Yes, but then in the reverse direction, if you lose to a top 5 team, lose to a team in the next, that middle pack of 6 through 10, 11 through 15, etc. So this extra math project, I am going to take this one on, guys. You don't have to worry about it at all. I will do the power rankings on my own every day, factoring in the points. It'll help me with my math, hopefully, for this podcast. But just to reiterate what we put out for the preseason top 5, it is 87's 1, Express 2, Railers 3, Wolves 4, Avalanche 5. Obviously, the top 4 teams there all advanced to semifinal Saturday this past year, and then the 5th team being the next best record between the Avalanche and Little Flyers, the 2 other teams that made it to Providence. So there's your preseason top 5. Take a screenshot. I don't know if that will be how we finish the regular season in the EHL.
I say we didn't post that just yet. We're going to post that with this new episode.
Yes.
So we don't have any comments to read on the air to all of you at home yet. But we can work that in, and that's a great thing too, Neil. As far as you doing that with the power ranking system gives us more time on the episodes to kind of digest other things. We're going to throw in some new wrinkles this year. Each year we've improved, and we're expecting bigger things from all of us this year, ourselves included. So some more fun content for you. Little teaser.
I'll read the EHLP as well, which again is we've never gone as in depth with the EHLP because it hasn't been as many teams. We have 15 teams in the EHLP this year. Like the EHLP has never been this big. So it's a great thing, right? Including 3 new teams. We could, as I like to say, one of my favorite sayings, we could spend a whole other episode on this. We used to have 2 Flyers teams. Now we have 2 Thunder teams. We have the Adirondack Junior Thunder in New York, and we have the Union Junior Thunder in New Jersey. And then the 3rd new team, the Pennsylvania Huntsmen, in obviously Pennsylvania. But I forget which episode. It was while I was in Hawaii, actually. I had the EHLP teams on, and I asked Zach Overholtzer from the Huntsmen. I said, this is your final chance to also change your team name to the Thunder. And he did decline on the podcast. So we could have also had the Pennsylvania Thunder, but only 2 Thunders this year. But
could have used a Lightning,
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, we definitely could have.
Made Justin very happy. That's Lightning in there.
That would be such a great matchup, Thunder versus Lightning.
But to read off the top 5, because now we can do 5 in the EHLP. We're at 15 teams.
Symmetrical too, Neil. Do you love that? 5 in one division, 5 in another, 5, 5, 5.
Yes. To read off the top 5, obviously the Rangers beat the Avalanche in the championship game, and then both of their coaches advanced to college. Crazy. Just the whole thing is awesome, right? That Michael Grace wins the championship, goes to Elmira to be their assistant coach, beats Vinny Calgieri in the championship game. He goes to Princeton to be their director of hockey operations. But literally, I love the title, like from the EHLP championship game to college. So
I forgot to mention too, Gary Gill is on the front page row too, going to the Binghamton Black Bears.
Yes,
professional. So good for Gary too.
BBB, not to confuse you and stumble there. Vermont's number 3, Little Flyers number 4, and then obviously the next best team at the finish of this past season was Worcester. You look back at the past 2 seasons of that division. 2 years ago, it was Worcester knocking off the Rangers to go to the Frozen Finals. This past year was the Rangers knocking off Worcester to go to the Frozen Finals. So there's your top 5 EHLP. Yes, there's your top 5 EHLP, your top 5 EHL preseason rankings to start off the season. And like I said, you can take a screenshot of those because I don't know if that's how it's going to finish.
I don't either. I think there's a lot of turnover this year on both the EHL and EHLP. You'll see some familiar faces. You know, when we were going through, not going to tell you our fantasy picks just yet, but you're going to see some guys that are coming back, right? Some big names. We got Jack Boshert's coming back from Walpole, maybe an early contender for goaltender of the year, the way he played last year. Nathan Miller has since left us. That's going to be weird because I feel like Nate Miller's been in this league for a long, long time, but he's going over to Babson now to play for the Beavers. So there you go, Jack. Here's your chance. Take that goaltender of the year award, possibly. Ronan Mobley's gone.
I think Jake can vouch for Stefan Kulhanek.
Oh yeah, he was an absolute stud last year. Looking to replicate that this year as most likely the starter on that Railers EHL team. So absolutely another contender for goaltender of the year.
I'm trying to find fast.
I mean, I feel like he should just get the award alone for his mic'd up sessions during practice.
Oh my goodness.
I can listen to him forever.
There's going to be lots more of that. We have some special stuff planned.
Is the Boston Red Sox still his favorite college basketball team?
Has Jake watched that video yet?
Oh, of course. Only about 5 times a day. Yeah.
Wake up, do a little Stefan Kulhanek. Go to bed.
The best part
First
about
thing
that,
before bed, last thing before when I wake up.
Yeah, helps you wake up and helps you go to sleep. A smile on your face.
I remember he was trying to talk to Coach Bertoni about what he had for dinner. Also, was that the same video?
Yes.
Yeah.
Tacos.
Couldn't remember. Yeah.
He kept forgetting. He kept forgetting what he had the previous night for dinner, and then he finally remembered it at the last possible second. But yeah, returning, he was part of the All-Star team last year. I mean, look right there at 2 names that Jeff has already mentioned. In that, when we go at the end of October to face SUNY Brockport and Nazareth, do I just lock in Jack Boschert and Stefan Kulhanek now for that? I mean, some goalie just heard that in the league, and so it's like, no, I'm gonna show you that those aren't the 2 guys to bring.
And I took that personally.
I think another Mitchell Taylor from the EHLP Rangers moving up to the EHL could be possible. Shane Baremba and the Avalanche.
Hey, Cam Carroll coming to the 87s. Yep. He was on the Railers EHLP team. He's now New Jersey.
That's
New Jersey's been like the Rangers as far as being able to work goalies in the last few years. Jeremy Connor, Owen Haynes. They've had a lot of good goalies in the short time they've been here.
And I'm glad that Anthony brought up Cam Carroll.
Forgot about Kopak.
Yeah, but the Cam Carroll one is interesting because it truly shows how well our teams work together, right? Yep. Because for Carroll, he knew that Kulhanek was probably going back, right? So if you're an age-out goaltender, you want to play, right?
And is LaPierre back too?
Yes,
he is.
Yes.
So that's the thing too. They had 3 goalies last year. When they got Carroll, LaPierre stepped up and kind of split time with Kulhanek when he fell down a little bit. So yeah, I mean,
you can't have 3 0-2s on the same team, right?
No.
So to take people through what takes place behind the scenes, a little bit of a peek, right? Cam reached out to the next closest team to him. It got permission from the Railers, and that next closest team was the Express, who is bringing in Nick Coda this year, who's bringing a goalie with him from the New Hampshire Junior Monarchs, but already has Jack Boschert. So now take another step forward. Owen Haynes is signed to come back to the 87s, but then Norwich calls and says, you want to commit to us right now and come for this fall? We're not going to hold the goalie back. Adam Mahouli's not going to hold the goalie back. So off to college goes Owen Haynes. Picks up the phone, calls Todd Sterling from the Express. They go back and forth. It makes the most sense for Carroll to go play for the 87s because it keeps the player in the league and gives him a place where he's actually going to be able to play and there's not like a 3 goalie, battle to try and get the net. What were you going to say, Anthony?
Also just wanted to add that Cam Carroll also played for the New Jersey Titans North American Hockey League team last season. And he
knows Craig Doremus and the boys.
Well, but he also knows Owen Haynes. So I think that personal connection also helped him out a bit.
Perfect.
For sure.
Look at that.
So
friends helping friends everywhere.
Back to Kulhanek, right? At some point during the summer, there's the 5 months all blend together, just like the 7-month season does for me. Sean Bertoni reached out to me and said, how many wins is Stefan Kulhanek away from being the all-time wins leader? I think that was part of the whole pitch of trying to bring him back, right? But at 42 wins, I guess I have
Miller's 52.
I have to actually put the pressing guys on here. He should be listed right here at 7, right? Tie with Billy Girard and Thomas Walker.
Wow, so he needs 11 to pass Nate Miller this year?
Yeah.
Ooh.
Also, can I just make one quick correction? Carroll did not play for the EHLP team. I feel like I've been getting my goalies mixed up for the Railers last season.
Carroll was Wickens?
Yeah, Wickens.
Yeah.
Carroll was on the
Another
EHL team. And he was the backup for Kulhanek. So want to make sure I get that right, especially before I come into my first game tomorrow with the 87s.
He was a trade deadline acquisition, I remember. And he came over from the NA, if I remember correctly, too.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, going from the NA to the EHLP, I don't think that really happens.
Doesn't correlate.
In hockey. No. So, see, like, even the broadcasters are trying to get into season form. I'm no exception to that.
Oh, yeah, baby.
Anthony just teased his first game. I'm not sure. Does Adam have a whole banner planned to drop on Friday?
Oh, yes.
Oh,
I think it already may be up there on the rafters, and it is beautiful.
Okay. Opening day for the 87s is at home tomorrow at 12:30 against the Apple Corps. The first game for Lenny Caglione as a head coach. I know we're going to get into it more next week. Lenny Caglione, a former player, played for the New Jersey Rockets back in the 13-14 season, was actually their captain, now coaching in the league. We'll get into it more next week because he was on like the Donnie Flynn Rockets? No, a few years before. Okay. Donnie Flynn was more like 16-17 time period.
Got it. Because my first year was February of 2014. So that's why I'm like,
yeah.
I'm going to see guys that I first called.
But he's coaching like a former player coaching his first EHL game as a coach this year, just like Nick Coda, who happens to be, this is your first call right there, Jake. When the Railers host the Express at Worcester. That's Nick Coda's first game as a former player, now as a coach. And then we'll get to it more next week when the Apple Corps play the Express as one of those 50 games at the showcase. But this is our 14-game slate to kick off the season. What stands out to you guys?
I mean, I'm interested to see how this new HC Rhode Island team looks. They don't have any. I think Josh Hogue is the only guy that I recognize as far as like an EHLer that moved over there. As far as the standout, he was an EHLP Express player last year. So really interested to see how they are. They're in my backyard over in Warwick. I'm in Cranston. So, James Mello, familiar face. So we're happy to see him back. Toby Harris, a great ownership. And,
Toby O'Brien.
I mean, Toby O'Brien. Oh my God.
You just thought of
New
Tobias,
Jersey,
Toby Harris from the Hitman. Yes.
Yes. Toby O'Brien. Sorry, Toby.
You know what it is?
I'll get the name to the face and then I'll be good. I've never met Toby O'Brien in person. Yeah. Toby Harris I've seen a lot. So, I want to see how the new Rhode Island team is, how the new Philly Hockey Club team is. Saw them last year in the USPHL, but they're totally different now in the EHL.
Well, with the Philly Hockey Club, they have 2 matchups against the ProTech Junior Ducks. So this could potentially be a rivalry in the making.
Yeah, that's a good point too. And Team Maryland too. Team Maryland looks pretty loaded early on as far as guys that they've taken from other rosters and stuff. Let's see how Josh Fusco and the Maryland boys do.
Yeah. 8:00 for the Ducks in Philly on Friday night and Saturday night. I've heard there is a great restaurant and bar at Hollydale. Ooh. So that's why you're going to see more night games on the weekends for the Philly Hockey Club. So, nice. But to kind of digest first, the first thing Jeff pointed out there, I guess now would be a great time for the first chirp that I've heard of the year. Oh, Jake, a very big fan of the league, the podcast, us, is Shawn Walsh, the head coach of Southern New Hampshire. And he's so locked in. Every top 10 selection that we came out with this summer, he responded that day with, here are my edits. Like, move him in, move him out. Like just so locked in. And he texted me, and I hope Rhode Island can see the humor in this, and maybe they want to use it as bulletin board material. He texted me and said, interesting strategy from Corey and the Wizards. Corey Felita, the head coach of the Wizards. The Wizards, historically, for whatever reason, struggle in September. Right? Fact.
Always start slow, do real good in the back half of the year.
Like the year they made a run to the final 8, I want to say, back when the playoff structure was a little bit different. They went like 0-7 in September, right? Like, and that was the year that they lost to the Junior Flyers, and the Junior Flyers went to the championship. But to finish Walshy's lovely chirp, interesting strategy from Corey and the Wizards. You don't want to start as slow in September, so you book the new team to kick off the year. So I thought that was pretty good. And I said, well, what about Terry? He did the same exact thing, which, of course, I can never say Terry Watt to Shawn Walsh without him calling him Terry Big Board Watt for the Exeter showcase when Terry forgot his whiteboard and had to use one that was about 5 feet wide.
Yeah, so, Walshy was on the call with me too, Neil. So that could have been more of a worse situation for good old Terry to have. Was that? Well, hopefully we're going to bring that back this year. We had Coach Shawn Walsh of Southern New Hampshire on and do some color commentary with me for a couple of games, and that was one of them. Because I remember when I went a little far, he was like, "Oh, Jefferson, geez, that's usually my job of ruffling feathers. You seem to be really going at this big board there." And then Terry let me have it, and we're good friends now, and we all chirp each other. It's all part of the fun. But that should be interesting. ProTech versus Philly, Rhode Island versus the Wizards. Hey, I mean, new teams also know that they're a new team too. That could put a circle and they say, "Oh, go ahead, take us lightly," and then maybe they come in and blow doors. Who knows?
And one thing I pointed out in the preview too, I'm sorry to cut you off, Neil, is that we have seen some expansion teams be competitive right out of the gate.
Team you work for has been pretty good, huh?
Two
championships.
The ProTech Junior Ducks, 2 seasons ago, when they came onto the scene, they were pretty competitive. I know I brought up the 87s before. The Railers, I think the Spartans maybe it was their second season where they that was when they knocked off the Avalanche in the first round.
Yep.
Speaking of, the Avalanche were an expansion team, everyone forgets.
Yeah, like it can be challenging getting an expansion team out into the EHL, but that doesn't mean they're automatically going to be a bad team. So I would like to see a team like Philadelphia Hockey Club or HC Rhode Island or either of the Thunders, come out pretty strong for the season.
I agree.
And I think that they certainly are capable of doing so.
So we've touched on Rhode Island versus the Wizards, that home and home series, the 2-game series, Philly and ProTech. Look at some of the other South matchups to kick things off. Maryland versus Little Flyers on Friday. Let's just jump right. I mean, go back further, right? Look at the Central matchup. Chiefs, Rough Riders. We talked about this off air. I'm just going to say it again. They nearly kill each other in their playoff series last year, right? So why not just begin the year with each other? Like, why not? Home and home series. We have one today at 12:30 in Newington. Then they play tomorrow at Sono. I mean,
but please stay out of the discipline office with Joe Britannia and Neil Ravin. Okay?
Yeah.
All right.
But like nearly kill each other
that
in the playoffs last season. And then Maryland versus Little Fly. Let's just rip the Band-Aid off right away. That Tyler Hassan and TJ Avelina are both on Team Maryland now, coming over from the Little Flyers.
Yep. Max Morris, former Boston Junior Ranger P, now with the Maryland boys.
Let's just rip the Band-Aid off right away.
Yep.
Right? And then some of the other matchups here, I guess we have to mention this. Every year, they have to play early.
I know. They always... What was that, 2 years ago, the COVID year that me and you did that opening game? We were like 900 feet from each other, and that was a shootout between these two at the ice tent.
No exaggeration. Jeff and I were very far away from each other. But yes, it was a shootout.
Yeah.
But that's Tyler Arago's first call of the year. Tyler, not on this week's episode. He's going to jump on with us next week. We're going to talk about that more when we get to fantasy, because that's where you'll see Tyler more involved. But obviously, Avalanche and Rangers, for some reason, love to face each other the first game of the year. Even though I told them that they're going to face each other in the September showcase. But let's just
get
cross off
right out of the gate.
Like, boom, right off the bat.
Then I'll see you in like November, December.
But like off of that, the Wolves and Spartans, that's kind of become a new annual opening type game for them. Railers Express, I touched on that earlier. That Jake, that's your first call. I mean, you can lead off that call by talking about their semifinal matchup from this past March.
And it's both teams that the Railers team saw the Express last year. Yeah. And for the big problem for the Railers is that they couldn't solve Jack Boschert, and guess who's back? It's Jack Boschert. So there was a 3-1 loss for them in the semis, the Frozen Finals last year. Both teams are losing their top 5-6 scorers from last season. So it's going to be a show for the new blood this season. So excited for that. And for the P team, it's a similar situation. The Railers knocked the Express out last year before they ultimately were eliminated. So revenge is on the table for both teams.
I'm sorry. I didn't even realize you called a P game first. Then the EHL game.
Yeah, 250, 230, 250, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, 250. Yeah. Yep. So your first call, I should say, is the EHLP game, then the EHL game.
Yes.
But then
we're going back to back.
Yes. So I guess back to we started the episode with, that's you just jumping in fully with both feet into the pool to start things off.
It's more like a nosedive, if anything.
But to get to
the water ready, get the tea ready, Jake. Get the lozenges, get it all.
Oh yeah, honey lemon always.
Yep. Jake, I will say, because I've done a couple of double headers myself. It is fun though, just knowing that you have two great games to call, especially with they both being Express and Railers. You have two great matchups, and I'm excited to give a listen on Hockey TV. Should be a great first day for you.
Yeah, definitely very busy. Gonna do some post-game interviews after, but what's better than a day at the rink?
Just don't lose your voice before the showcase. That's all I could say.
Yes, don't do that.
I'll get a nice 3-4 days of just not talking at all, and then I'll be ready to go again.
By the way, I have to bring this up because we're talking about voices. It has nothing to do with hockey because it has to do with football. Did anybody watch the Sunday night game this past week for the NFL? Jeff, Brady was playing. Obviously, my father was playing in the game. That's why I was watching.
Well, I told you I drafted him in one of my leagues this year. Did I tell you that? So I have to kind of root for him this year.
We just became closer friends.
Him and Lenny Fournette. I was like, I got to do it. All right.
So did you watch the game or no?
Yeah, I watched a little bit of it.
So did you have the volume up? Did you hear Collinsworth? Chris Collinsworth.
Well, I heard in the beginning of the game.
He lost his voice already. Did he? Because they called the opener last Thursday, Bills Rams. And then and then they went from LA to Texas, had a couple of days off, but then Tirico's now the play-by-play, not Al Michaels anymore. And he's like, please excuse Collinsworth or Chris's voice. Like it basically sounded like he had smoked a pack of cigarettes before the game. But he literally lost his voice already in the first week. Ugh. And it was like, wow, that is a tough start to a long season. But
now we play 17 games, Chris, not 16. So enjoy that one.
But to get to some of those EHLP matchups now, we mentioned how Jake is starting off in the EHLP on Saturday. That's when the EHLP season begins. The EHL season begins today, the 15th, with the one game between the Chiefs and the Rough Riders. A big slate on Friday the 16th, an even bigger slate Saturday the 17th. But for the EHLP, everything gets started on Saturday. Little Flyers 87s. It feels like every year it comes down to one of those teams to go to the Frozen Finals. So why not kick off this new season with that same matchup?
And Coach Catron's not coaching both teams this year, correct?
No, welcome back,
an old face coming back.
Narrigan.
Yeah, welcome back, Mike. We're happy to see you at Worcester Showcase. I'm sure Mark Catron is pumped that you are taking the P duties and not having to coach two teams this year, because that is a lot. Mid-Atlantic defending Mid-Atlantic champs, and the 87s they were down. They actually came back and finished at 500, but I remember at one point in time last year they went through a long losing streak. So that's another team I think that Coach Connell and the boys will be eager to get back to their winning ways too. For sure.
A few other matchups to touch on before we jump into fantasy. I know everyone's trying to find the time that we actually start talking about fantasy here. The Chiefs kicking off with a doubleheader against the Renegades on Saturday. Adirondack, welcome to the league. They're kind of rivals in a way, because that's the closest team we've ever had to Vermont. Just under 100 miles, 99 miles. I mean, we just have never had anybody apply for expansion near there, right?
They play a cool, ensuring arena. That's
where their ECHL team plays. So got to figure out some way of making a trip up there to see an EHLP game and an ECHL game up there. Again, welcome to the league. The Union Thunder. Why don't you schedule your first game against the 87s? Little home state of New Jersey. Welcome to the league. And then Avalanche kick off their season, defending regular season champions. We mentioned Vinny Caligiuri has left for Princeton. Aaron Ward, not the Aaron Ward that played in the NHL, but is their new coach. Good background for him as well. That the opening slate for the EHLP, not quite as big as the opening slate for the EHL, but as we mentioned, a great way for us to get this year started right before next week's 50-game gauntlet. But
I just
what are you gonna say, Anthony?
I also just want to add, I actually have spoken with Sam Taffel a couple of times, the coach of the Union Thunder, the Thunder in New Jersey, and good guy. He came to an 87s game this past season, and he was talking to Adam Hooley, he was talking to Connell, he was talking to me and asking about the broadcast equipment. So I was helping him out in that regard. So I hope that they're an organization. They're one of those teams that can really hit the ground running. Maybe not against the 87s, but that's no bias there whatsoever.
No,
but and it's good to have another New Jersey team back in the mix. I remember when the New Jersey Wild were in the EHLP back in the 2017-18 season.
Yep.
But to have a third team back in New Jersey with the 87s, Thunder, and Renegades, it should be another good Garden State battle.
It was a good place to play junior hockey last year. We'll see if it continues this year.
When Anthony just made that comment about the 87s, Jake, Andrew Trimble, the co-owner of the Wolves and GM of the Wolves, just sat up in his chair. But we'll teach you more about that love fest later on.
They had a great picture day at Frozen Finals.
Great picture at the Frozen Finals. But I know everyone has been waiting. They want to hear about this new format for fantasy. So let's now go to the Ecru Fantasy Challenge.
It's time for the Ecru Fantasy Challenge.
The Ecru Fantasy Challenge is presented by BioSteel, the sports drink of the EHL. Use the promo code ESHOW, ESHOW, for 25% off when you check out at biosteel.com.
We will start by congratulating Lauren again for winning this past season. I won the year before. Jeff won the year before that. And now it's time for a brand new format.
Before we go into the format, can I just say, Jake, that was an awesome read, man. That sounded so official.
Welcome to the podcast. Welcome to the podcast.
He's got good pipes. He's got great lettuce. You wait till you see the lettuce on this kid.
Yes.
Better than most of the guys in the league, I think, unfortunately. For them.
I'd say so.
Someone's going to challenge that at the first showcase for sure.
Chirp, chirp, chirp.
So I wanted to change things up because, I mean, it will happen at some point this season, but we had a few too many recordings after dark this past year. Mm-hmm. We all have busy schedules. I mean, I don't call quite as many games as I used to. I really call, I can probably count them on one hand. Definitely not as many as the three of you will be calling throughout this season, but it takes time to get to and from the games. So I wanted to come up with a format that kind of helped us just keep things flowing throughout the year and kept us from recording at midnight. So with that, we're no longer playing individually. It's a little bit different, yes, for sure, because we've had these great individual battles over the years and obviously huge bragging rights to it. But with it being the 10th season of the EHL,
we got our hardware, Neil. We're good.
Yes.
They've done that.
We always talk about the original 6 teams in the EHL, the OGs, as everyone likes to always call those older guys that have been around for a while. So
the
Jeff,
old people,
yes,
is that what OG stands for? Old guys,
old guys.
You know what?
Original gangsters.
If anybody asks this season, Anthony, Team OG, Jeff and I is really Team Old Guys. We're gonna go with that, Jeff. All right.
Also, Neil.
Old guys
Hang on, Neil. I just want to say something to Neil and Jeff. Neil, it's been a joke that everyone else calls you, our fearless leader.
Oh God.
So if that nickname sticks, I think we also need to give a nickname to Jeff. Jeff, I think you should go by General Mills.
Oh, I like that. That was actually, I think that was my twin sister's AIM screen name back in the day. Or no, she was Mills Lane. That's what it was. Judge Mills Lane.
That just made us.
I like that.
That just made us sound even older. AIM.
My AOL screen name. My away message back in the day. My typewriter.
But for Team Old Guys,
I like that.
Jeff and
Some
I,
original gangsters, old guys.
We will be going up every week against Team HNIB, our great partners at Hockey Night in Boston, which is really a team of 4, 5, I guess you could say, because this week they're represented on the podcast by Jake and Anthony. Next week, Tyler's going to jump on as well. He's a part of them. If for some reason Tyler, Jake, and Anthony, none of them can make a podcast, we'll go to Trevor. We'll get Trevor involved. He's been begging me. He's been begging me to come on the podcast. If Trevor is also not available, we'll just go to Trevor's girlfriend. We'll get Haley on the podcast, and we'll just keep going down the list. We can get Alexis, who's going to be doing some stuff for us as well. If I need to bring in Jamie, we can do that. But
we got 4 lines, baby. We got 4 lines. We roll them.
Team HNIB's got quite the depth chart. You guys have nothing going on down the lineup.
I don't know, Jake. For what they lack in depth, they make up for in experience. So they might be a bit top. They might be a bit top heavy team. But
what are they going to do when we're going to start rolling 2 lines out here? They can't compete with that.
Anthony, speak for yourself. I never skip leg day. I do top heavy.
The best part about it is Team HNIB is going to probably have this like running long conversation with like in-depth scouting going for next week's fantasy, while Jeff and I 5 minutes before the podcast are going to be like, all right, who are we going to pick?
Call each other up. We talk pretty much every day, I'd say. So, it'll be fine, but you can find me on my, just send me a message on my AIM, Neil.
Yes. We're going to bring back, that's the ultimate goal of Team Old Guys is to bring back AIM. There you go.
Put my away message on. Doing the e-show podcast.
Meanwhile, it hasn't been announced yet, but Team HNIB might start announcing our picks on TikTok.
So.
TikTok. What is that?
Oh my God. I gotta compose myself. All right. So yes, Team OG, old guys, versus Team H&IB, Hockey Night in Boston, every week. So again, make it easier for my math. I'm going to be doing so much math with the power rankings. I'm going to have less time for my fantasy math. But each team is going to pick 6 guys per week, 3 forwards, 2 D, and a goalie. Obviously, one of those 6 guys has to be an EHLP player, but it doesn't matter what position that you pick. So if you want to pick an EHLP goalie, you do that. You pick a defenseman, forward, you name it. Jake, what we're going to see a lot of this season is obviously a lot of research has to go into who's actually playing. Coming up this week, we have this home and home series. There's
a formula to it. Some people follow it, some
don't. To give you a good laugh, 2 seasons ago, there was a forward named Braden Patricia who actually helped the Protect Ducks launch their inaugural year and went absolutely off in the first week. And one of Kyle, who was on the podcast at the time, had him picked. He must have put up 34 fantasy points, something crazy. And the next week, Jeff just right away said, I'm picking Patricia. And I said, Jeff, it's a great pick, but they play no games. So you should probably pick somebody else because he's not going to get you any points. But with that, what you're going to see a lot of also is it can be harder in the EHLP. But as you get to know the coaches, especially in the EHL, and you're trying to pick a goalie, you got to make sure that goalie's playing. Because if that goalie doesn't play, that's just a goose egg. So getting to know the coaches.
Timeshares, not great for fantasy. The 1A, 1B.
Getting to know the coaches and finding out, hey, who's starting on Friday? That's a very big key. So we will let Team H&IB, because we're the old guys, we'll let Team H&IB pick first and go first to start off this season's fantasy. You guys, the floor is yours.
It's funny that you mentioned you have to, obviously pay attention to the amount of games played, because we picked a guy who I realized at 1 a.m. yesterday didn't have a game. So we had to call an audible like 7:45 this morning. So
that was that was someone from the Lumberjacks. That was Victor Daniel.
Yes.
Oh, Victor Daniel.
Yeah. So a good pick for sure.
Later on. Yeah.
Not for 0 games. No.
Just not this week.
Yeah, so we started off William Prey with the Spartans, 24 goals last season, top 10 in the league, number 2 all-time points for the Spartans. If I was him, I'd be pretty hungry to take number 1. So there you go. That's and they play the Wolves Saturday. Aiden Hotchkiss, next pick for our forward EHL Avalanche, monster year, 61 points, 5th in the league, 8 power play goals. They play Boston Junior Rangers this Friday. Then we have Diese Gregorievs. Hope I'm saying that right. Also, he's a Wolves player. Nearly point per game last year. Only played 28 games, but had 26 points. Leading playoff goal scorer. Played high-level hockey in Latvia, Russia, Lithuania before that. So looking him and Lakis as the 2 big guys on that team to kind of carry the load. Now we're moving to defense. Got JJ Creighton of Team Maryland. He had 11 goals, 14 assists last season. Over half a point per game for a D-man is obviously great, but even more impressive than that is double-digit goals, and he led the league in that category for D-men. So last year's All-Star is probably going to improve on that this year. I would bet on that. So they're matching up against the Little Flyers on Friday. Then we have Aiden Swain, who is on the Railers P team. I've got to watch him closely through training camp last week and the scrimmages this week. He's getting good amounts of time on that power play, had 7 goals, 11 assists last year. So as kind of a veteran leader on that P team, another year of growth behind him. He's coming in tremendous shape this year. So he's going to get those minutes. And I think the points are going to come with that, and they'll take on the Express Saturday. And then finally, our goaltender, this was unanimous in the group, Jake Basile, Express. EHL regular season was impressive, right? 940 save percentage, 1.82 goals against, 3 shutouts, but the dude was unconscious in the playoffs, 967. So, I mean, what better choices could we make? And I think it's going to be a rough week for Team OG.
Well, I have 2 follow-up comments to that. So
put us in a stretcher already. Oh no.
Yes, and Jake is immediately putting himself in a tough position, because while calling the Railers he will be calling against his fantasy goalie. So to feel his energy during that broadcast, it's going to be very interesting to follow. So I am going to be tuned in to hear how loud a Jack Basile save call will sound this weekend. But then also you mentioned Gregorievs. I think that he pronounced it right, but we're going to go to Anthony and Jeff for that. I think it is Gregorievs.
I was saying I call them Gregorievs.
Gregorievs is what I said. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I remember him saying Gregorievs, but
yeah, I looked up
both last year.
I looked up the Latvian pronunciation, so I think I'm safe.
Okay.
Well done, Jake. So what did you say? Gregorievs?
Gregorievs, yeah.
Gregorievs. So we'll stick so we can all say the same name all year long. There he is.
I will still mess it up, but I bring up this picture now so that if he brings back the Austin Matthews celebration again,
oh, wow.
you got to ask him about this.
The goal point.
Yes.
Love that.
I mean, I think he did it,
man.
I mean, this was in a shootout. You can see the Wolves goalie behind him. So he must have skated halfway up the ice and then pointed back at the goal. He's pretty close to the Wolves net in this picture. So
it's a confident guy.
It's a very confident guy. The Wolves last season, to put them on the spot this season, they were dynamic in the shootout. Mm-hmm. Between him and Jolenski's and Declan House, they were excellent in the shootout. So we'll see if they are this year. Jeff, do you want to do the team OG picks for us? At least start them.
I was gonna say, we want to do it together. What do we want to do here?
Let's go, old guys.
You want to start with Dallas?
The old Dallas D'Amato from the Connecticut Rough Riders, a returner. We're expecting big things out of you this week there, Dallas. So and also I think Dallas is expecting big things out of himself, right? He loses Colin Bella. Those guys were on a line last year at points and times, and he's a good producer. He's a Colorado kid. So that's some place that we're trying to grow the game, and we've gotten a good amount of guys from Colorado recently. D'Amato, 54 points. That's more than I remember, in last year. 18 goals, 36 assists in 44 games. So
I mean, it not playing with Colin Bella will be something to watch. There's nothing to take away from Dallas, but not playing with Colin Bella, who could score at will from anywhere on the ice, basically.
Having watched the Rough Riders this past season, I think D'Amato will be just fine. He himself is a good hockey player, and I think he should, at the very least, get close to last season's point total.
Right.
One thing that Jeff does very well when it comes to announcing fantasy picks is not staying in order. So, Jeff, why don't you announce our defenseman next from the Rough Riders?
That's so funny because I literally just had him pulled up. He's literally on my phone. There he is, Kieran Chung. We know each other too well. We've been working together for too long. And here comes Kieran Chung from England. I can't do accents very well, but Kieran's from England. We love Kieran. And he had 35 points in 39 games last year. He's a great mate of England. And now Kieran he's a very, very good guy on the back end. Another guy we talked about, goaltender of the year last year, maybe someone that could be up there for defenseman of the year. He's only 18 years old.
It's
not
crazy.
A huge kid either. He's only 5'10", 159 he's listed at. But had 35 points in 39 games last year for Coach Brown and Coach Lind. And I'm pretty sure a lot of those came on the power play too. He was a guy that we all picked last year for the power play points because you get extra points there, but we don't want to give any secrets away to these young bucks and tell too many of our secrets of how we got our individual hardware from previous years. But so Kieran Chung, defenseman. What were you saying?
I know it's still hard to believe that he's only an 04, right? And I said that to Eric Lind and Stephen Brown when I had them on for the last Team of the Week feature. That wasn't that long ago. That was last week. And their hopes for Kieran is just another solid season, 2 solid years in the EHL. And then truly their vision for the 23-24 season is to hopefully get Kieran to move up to the USHL team in Cedar Rapids. So we're going to start with 2 Rough Riders. They obviously have that home-and-home series with the Chiefs. To get to the forwards, we mentioned one of these names earlier, Max Morris, who played Rangers EHLP this past season, helped them win the EHLP championship, heading down with his brother, Sebastian Morris. Maybe we should have picked him for the other D, Jeff. But we had to
see that picture too, by the way, his updated picture of Dan Hickling, the trophy hardware right there.
Oh yeah, it's a good picture. I mean, he was excellent for them this past season. Truthfully, for me, what stands out even more was the hat trick that he scored at the EHLP All-Star game. I think most of those goals were in the third period too. But he was the MVP of that EHLP All-Star game. So we're going to go with him up front, and then we'll wrap up the forwards with a former Rough Rider in Dominic Civitano, who moved over to Protect during the season this past season. He actually, prior to that, he put up 60 points during his time with the Rough Riders, and then in 9 games with Protect wrap up the year, he had 6 points. So Jeff and I are hoping that 3 games equals buckets of points for Civitano to start this thing off. But then to get to our second D, again, funny how Team OG matched Team HNIB, and our EHLP selection this week came on the back end. Jack Randall, he's actually moving from the Lumberjacks to Adirondack. He's from there, right? So he's actually returning to where he played youth hockey, and he's bringing the experience of being in the last 2 Frozen Finals. The Lumberjacks have made the Frozen Finals the last 2 years in the EHLP. So I don't know if they've officially given him the C yet for Adirondack, but I would imagine he's kind of the de facto captain as the biggest veteran for that Thunder team. So we'll have him.
The coaching staff's going to use that. That's massive. Good for them.
For sure. And then in goal, I mentioned earlier, Kulhanek and Bosher trying to pencil themselves in already for the EHL All-Star College Series. Matt Gover. Yeah, Matt Gover is screaming, "What about me?" Also, a great question for Jake when he gets the chance to interview Gover. And I know I've said this too. He is a tremendous goalie, but him and I have golfed together. Like, he is out of this world on the golf course. Like, Graham
Hassan level.
He could play in college. Like, he could play Division I in college. I think I'm a pretty good golfer at a 6 handicap, right? When I play golf with this guy, like, it's not even like fair. Like, it is a different sound off the club, and it's like, you know how they have the tracker when you watch it on TV? Like, it's straight every single time. But he was huge for the Wizards this past season. Early on, the Wizards like to go 1-1-1, use all 3 of their goalies in a row. But then as the season progressed, Gover became like the guy for them, especially in that Express series this past season, which included the longest game in EHL history. As good as Jack Bosher was in that series, Matt Gover was right there with him. I think that was a 2-1 game, and he had 60-something plus saves in that game. So, hey, Rhode Island, if you want to just pour on 60 shots right into the chest of Gover this weekend, Jeff and I, we won't be opposed to that. So
we won't. Actually, what's funny too, Neil? They actually both shared that cookie dough love, right? We talked about it last year. Matt Gover's nickname is Cookie Dough. He has it on his helmet. Not sure if he's changing the helmet for this year. Jack Boschert told me at the Frozen Finals, little inside scoop, he eats cookie dough every night before a start. And if you've seen Jack Boschert, the kid he's svelte. He's not a big kid. And I'm like, how do you eat cookie dough? Melissa, the Express billet mom, says, "Oh yeah, Jack loves his cookie dough." Yep. And I'm like, how do you eat cookie dough in massive amounts like that every night? And then you go out and, put up 1.11 goals against for the year, 950 save percentage. Like, how do you do that?
Yeah, when you train as hard as Jack Bosher, it's easier to get away with eating cookie dough. If you're just broadcasting or, sitting down at a computer for work, I don't think you can really get away with eating that much cookie dough. Before a game day. So
it would be an interesting challenge for us to eat cookie dough before every episode of the podcast. So, but that does it for fantasy.
Getting a little wide in the frames.
That does it for fantasy this week. For fantasy, it's a little bit easier for us to kind of pick from 22 games next week. We have to figure out how to pick from those 50 showcase games. Well, we'll get to next week. For now, let's get to what to watch for.
Before we wrap things up, here's what to watch for this week in the E-Show.
What to Watch For is presented by Hockey TV, the official streaming platform for your EHL and EHLP action through the 2022-2023 season.
One game apiece. Pick one game apiece to watch for this week, and if you want to, you can pick the games that you're going to call. I'm totally fine with that because I'm not calling any games. I'll take the annual Rangers Avs just to see where those guys are at. Sorry, Jeff, did I just take your pick?
You took mine too.
Okay, you can pick the game that you're calling if it's easier for you. Honestly, it's a good plug to get people to tune in and listen to your first game.
Yeah, well, that's a good decision in itself, I guess. But my original pick was going to be the Junior Rangers Avalanche game. I'm excited to see the debut of Michael Bachetto in the EHL after being the Peace top scorer. So that's what I'm looking out for. He's got some championship history now, so sure he wants to bring that experience to BJR. But yeah, definitely tune into those Express Railers games. I hear there's a pretty cool guy calling them.
Interesting thing, though, about Mike Bachetto, he did not score a single goal in the postseason until they had that last round-robin game that didn't really mean anything. And I spoke because Chris Russo was the color commentator, and we had said maybe that gets his confidence up now that he got a puck in the net, getting ready for the championship game. And sure enough, he scores the overtime winning goal to win the championship.
Early, too.
Yes.
It was like a minute and a half in.
Minute and change.
Quick. Anthony, is your game to watch the banner afternoon at the 87th?
I mean, the 87s are always must watch, but for the sake of some people, hey, Andrew Trimble, love you, but I'm going to pick a different potential rivalry. I said it earlier in the podcast. I want to see how the ProTech Junior Ducks and Philadelphia Hockey Club will square up against each other. They're facing each other twice before the showcase, and like I said, this really could be a fun rivalry in the making.
Jeff, you want to wrap us up?
Yeah, let's do it. Ready? Team Maryland, PLF.
Okay.
We got a lot of familiar faces to the Philadelphia Little Flyers. We talked about it earlier. Neil, you mentioned it. Tyler Hissong, TJ Avellino. And we're in Maryland colors now.
Yeah.
So what's that going to look like? And then just looking at the Flyers. I mean, the Philadelphia Little Flyers, that is. They got some guys that moved up, right? We got Johnny Dangerously, we talked about last year in the podcast. He's in the EHL now. Kobe Howat, I remember. Caleb Cathcart, another guy we remember. Shane Green's back.
Nicholas McKay moved up as well.
Nick McKay, yep. There's another one. Louis Finnegan, I believe, moved up. I remember him from last year. Ronnie Petrucci. I mean, they lose Joey Henson, right? Joey Henson goes to Ferris State. Congratulations to
Division I commit.
Yeah, and Ferris State's not a team to be taken lightly. A lot of people don't know them that are not massive Puckhead fans like us, but that is a serious college hockey school in Ferris State. So what are they going to look like without? That's another team that we've talked about. All these other teams that have had great goaltending. Brendan Brawley's still up there in the all-time wins. Joey Henson was great. There's been a lot of guys that walked through those doors. So now who's next there? Is it Louis Finnegan? Is it Ronnie Petrucci? Can Downs take the step up? Can Lee take the step up? I think they will. And then, can Hissong and Avellino maybe put a puck past some of their old teammates and maybe do a little drive by the bench. Hey guys, good to see you. I don't know. We'll see. Let's see.
Some great games to watch. A great slate to start off the season. Finally, guys, let's drop the puck.
Thanks for listening to The E-Show. Learn more at easternhockeyleague.org and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Also, be sure to subscribe and get notified when next week's podcast is released.